In this screencast, we're going to take a look at how to actually render a movie of our animation once we've built it. To do this, I'm going to switch views only so that it's clear what's going on in the screencast so we can look at a few things bigger. You don't have to switch views if you don't want to. I'm going to go back to Model View, and we'll go to wireframe just so we feel vaguely consistent. I'm going to make the button bar quite large here because most of what we're doing is going to be actually in the button bar. I'm going to switch to the scene button here, the little landscape painting. And in here I need to change a couple of things. The first thing I need to change is where the actual animation will be saved as a new movie file. So I'm going to click on this little folder here. In fact, let me make this much larger. I'm going to click on this medium-sized folder here next to the directory name for saving animations. And this comes up as probably the folder in which you have saved your model. We want to toggle relative paths, and if we'd like to add something to the beginning of our animation file's name, for example, my first render, we can do that. And we're going to select output pictures. So what this does, the / means same directory as my model file. And then my first render, all of the renders that we do from here on out will start, the names will start my first render, and then it'll say 0 to 250 or 0 to 500, the first and last frame numbers of our render. The next thing we're going to do here is, whoops, remember that we're using a Mac and don't have the same mouse controls. Over here under the Format tab, right now our animation is going to be rendered as a JPEG, which actually means each frame will be an individual JPEG file. We could use this to make a movie, but it's a hassle. If we click on this, it becomes a drop-down menu, and we can use QuickTime. If we switch to QuickTime, it'll actually bring up a dialog asking us some details about how we want to manage this movie file. We're just going to click OK blindly, not worry about it. So now, rather than saving a lot of individual JPEGs of each movie file, we're actually just going to save one big movie file. And at this point, if we've set up all of our lighting and animation and rendering options the way we want, we can now click Anim. And it will slowly, one frame at a time, render our file. It'll actually, let me bring this window down so you can see the top of it here. It'll actually be keeping track across the top here of what frame we're on and how long it's taken so far. This is going to be quite a while because this animation on this computer, it takes about 45 seconds to a minute to render each frame for a 250 frame animation. So I'm going to pause and we'll come back to this in a minute when it's done. Once the animation window stops counting frames and we finish the animation in Blender, if we go look in our Documents folder, we should actually see the video file that we had rendered. My first render, as promised, from frame 1 to frame 250, we now have a movie file of our animation that we can post to YouTube, share with our friends, whatever. Enjoy.